The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language. Mature audiences are cleared to proceed.
Shall we begin? Let's begin.
John Le Carre is the reigning giant of delivering pure, realistic tradecraft fiction. This 2011 adaptation of his best-selling spy novel brings a heavily top-loaded cast. It stars Gary Oldman, John Hurt, Toby Jones, Benedict Cumberbatch, Tom Hardy, and so many more. I'm Todd.
And I'm Dave, and we like to talk about spy movies.
It's going to be hard for us to find the bad tradecraft in this version of Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, but if there are any flaws, you better believe we're going to find them in this episode of Spies Like Us. This is going to be our second John Le Carre film. We previously did, A Most Wanted Man, which was a lot of fun. We didn't talk a lot about John Le Carre that time around, though, did we?
No, we just mentioned that he's kind of like a spy fiction mogul. We kind of just creamed all over the movie because of how much we loved it.
Le Carre is no joke. Ian Fleming, I guess, is more famous, popularly famous because of the James Bond thing. But I think people in the know, like that take spy fiction really seriously, are all about Le Carre. And this is one of his hits that we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when this movie came out and everybody was talking about it. This is probably his most famous, next to The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, and it's probably becoming more famous.
Le Carre did work for MI6 from 1960 to 1964. He was already writing his first novels during that time, including the super famous The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. Throw some trivia out there that the unveiling of the infamous mole Kim Philby, which we've had opportunity to talk about several times in this podcast so far, that outing of Kim Philby actually had something to do with Le Carre's ouster from the service in 1964.
What I think happened is Kim Philby released the names of agents, and it basically compromised those agents, so he kind of had to retire.
Interesting. The Spy Who Came In From the Cold had already seen some major success, so he wasn't too worried about it. He just switched from the service into becoming a full-time novelist. He's a giant in the spy fiction trade. He still writes even to this day. I think 2019 he's even got some stuff coming out. He's even so big that and after all this time, and after this, we're talking more than 55 years, more than 55 years of writing spy fiction. At this point, what's so fascinating is that some of his terms that he invented for his fiction actually found their way into actual spy parlance. I think he's credited for inventing the term the barium meal.
Yeah, I think we discussed that when we talked about the company in our first episode, when we actually talked about what a barium meal was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. When your fiction is so good that the real pros start cribbing off of your notes.
Yeah. I've heard that's kind of same with mafia films, that the mob never really talked like that till the movies came out, and they just thought it was so cool they started talking like that.
I kind of believe it. And it made me think, I was thinking the other day, it feels like it would be impossible to make a mob movie that occurs after Goodfellas came out, because all of them would have seen Goodfellas.
Right.
And they'd probably be quoting that movie left and right.
That's pretty funny.
The George Smiley character, who's the main character in Tinker Tailor, did show up in Carre's first few novels, and was I think the main character there. But those were kind of more like detective stories that just kind of flirted around with intelligence. But Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is when he brings that character back to the foreground. He's kind of building a whole his own universe and stable of different characters. The super famous version, the reason I've known that title all my life, it seems, is because of BBC series starring Alec Guinness. That apparently was a massive hit in England. Gary Oldman, who plays the character in this version of Tinker Tailor, recalled that he said that back in the day, like pretty much all of Britain just completely stopped for that 1 hour every Sunday night. It was like
Yeah.
nationwide appointment viewing. Everybody stop what you're doing and see what's going on with Alec Guinness in what is apparently largely hailed as one of his greatest achievements as an actor before we all got to know him as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, I watched an interview with him forever ago talking about researching for playing Smiley, Alec Guinness I'm talking about. And he got to meet with some real spies. And he made this whole comment about, I have a question. I've seen people run their finger around the brim of the glass. I've even seen people flick the side of the glass. Is it so he could see the poison? Like he was super intrigued talking to these spies. Right. You could tell like he fanboyed a little bit in the research.
Yeah, well, in the interview I saw, it was like a panel interview, and Gary Oldman and John Hurt were laughing about the idea of, like that all like actors know of like that first rush of like, oh my God, I get to play Hamlet. And then your next thought is, oh, fuck, I have to play Hamlet. It's like how he felt. He was really hesitant. And that's amazing to me to think of an actor of Gary Oldman's caliber. Because, of course, for my generation, I'm aware of Alec Guinness. But, Gary Oldman's, a giant to me. And
right.
to imagine him feeling threatened, or not threatened, but
overshadowed or something, or hard shoes to fill type
yeah,
of thing.
Yeah, exactly. of being nervous about
Right.
tackling the Alec Guinness version of it. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah.
I think even I didn't follow up on all of them. There's been a bunch of versions too. There were some radio versions. I think even Anthony Hopkins has taken his swing at it at some point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
I could see an Anthony Hopkins as Smiley.
Sure.
You were talking about how the actors kind of had cold feet trying to fill the shoes, and how it kind of like surprised you. It was just kind of like a awe-inspiring experience to think that I just wanted to talk about the cast. The cast of this film is like ridiculous.
It's everyone you want.
Yeah, every British actor that you want in a film is in it. Like you got Cumberbatch, Colin Firth, Tom Hardy, Gary Oldman, John Hurt, like and it keeps going. Like there's all kinds of people with it. It's great.
This movie's got a big job that it needs to tackle. It's trying to fit an enormous long miniseries into a flat 2 hours, which is about how long this version runs. It's reaching to try to make a current version of what's considered like a serious classic that's not only been done on screen before, but also, still super famous in the on-page canon. I think what our main job is going to be here on the tradecraft element is to, see if there's any places where they kind of sacrifice the actual realistic tradecraft for the sake of just trying to squeeze all these events in.
I'm ready.
Let's hit it.
Retinal scan complete. Validating security clearance. Clearance granted. You may now enter the briefing room.
Now, again, the George Smiley character in his first appearance in the very early novels was a detective, more of a detective than a spy. And this indeed does it fits to me the general mold of a detective story, by which I mean like most of the most interesting stuff is stuff that happened before the events that we're seeing in the film, and our main character needs to kind of unearth and put the pieces together of what actually happened. We're gonna kind of do it sort of chronologically in these kind of cases. And there's some time jumps in this movie which I found a bit hard to follow. I'll freely admit I don't think I would have been able to completely follow this film on the first pass unless I had Wiki open on my phone to kind of help me keep track of characters and stuff. But I think we can simplify it down into there's basically three time periods that we're looking at here. There's the John Hurt control era, and that was first. That was the oldest era, and that was when George Smiley was on the force. John Hurt was the head of MI6, codename Control, and at a certain point they get outed, and a guy named Percy Allalane, codename Forehead. Not really.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Toby. You're an amazing actor. But yeah, when he has like his period, and then there's the final period, which is like the contemporaneous part of the film, and that's where George Smiley gets like brought back in to investigate basically like the shit that happened between when he left and when he came back, but also to investigate some of that stuff that happened that he maybe didn't know about, like even before Control got forced out. So basically three periods of time, and we'll try to keep those straight. The big operation that runs throughout like all three time periods is something called witchcraft. Witchcraft is an op that's meant to funnel information from a Soviet source. Basically, Percy is on top of this operation, mainly runs it, but he's got some compatriots, which are sometimes referred to in the film dismissively by John Hurt as, Percy's cabal. But we'll keep using that term too to reference the guys that are running witchcraft along with Percy. The source that they have that they're getting the information from is a high-ranking Soviet official named Polyakov. Now, witchcraft was running during the John Hurt control era, which was something that John Hurt was quite annoyed by, because it was kind of like Percy making a power play sort of behind his back, right? But Percy had also kind of gone around his back and gotten, I don't know, some kind of approval from
Percy went behind my back. All of our backs, all by himself. And the source is being kept secret.
During the second period, that's when Percy actually replaces John Hurt as Control, and witchcraft goes into kind of a higher gear. In the final contemporaneous part of the movie where George Smiley is doing his operation, witchcraft is still going on and is also like kind of aiming to you describe it. What's the final phase of witchcraft with the CIA?
The idea is with witchcraft garnishing so much like premier intelligence that MI6 can now go to their CIA compatriots and start trading in intelligence and gaining CIA intelligence and providing what they're getting from the Russians.
Right. So, I mean, the CIA and MI6 are ostensibly on the same side, but I guess there's certain things that, the CIA is not necessarily sharing freely with MI6.
Right.
Percy thinks that the witchcraft intelligence is good enough to trade with the CIA, right?
This was his big stepping stone. And as he ascends to the throne, he kind of kicks out all the dissidents that are like Team John Hurt and only supporting like people that are down for Team Percy.
Right. For Percy, witchcraft isn't just an operation. It's it seems to be like his personal vehicle for his ambition, and that makes him blind to some certain things. You just mentioned like he kind of does a purge once he gets into power, including of just, just seems like anybody that raised questions about witchcraft. I'm going to call that my number 3 worst tradecraft of the movie, failing to separate his own personal interest in the success of the operation from how the operation is actually working out. So now that's witchcraft on its face.
Right.
But
well, it turns out the real purpose of witchcraft was actually fed to MI6, and the real purpose of witchcraft is the brainchild of Carla, and spoiler alert, Bill the Tailor, played by Colin Firth, who turns out to be the mole. Sorry to spoil it if you haven't seen the movie, but the real purpose of this op is for the Russians to get intelligence from their mole and to pass messages back. Why this is such a great cover is because all of the heads of the circus are going and are involved in witchcraft, passing information between the Russians. So it's actually a great, like, kind of flooding the possible suspects because everybody's kind of involved in it, and it's like an official op.
You're right. It seems to me that the real kind of genius of witchcraft is that so many people are involved, and it's all kind of above board, like to an extent. It's not an it's an operation running in plain sight. And all 4 of the guys that Percy and his 3 compatriots, all of them are feeding Polyakov intelligence, but all of them think that they're just feeding Polyakov fake intelligence. But one of them,
like, not valuable or not super valuable or something, like they call it chicken feed.
Chicken feed. That's right. That's right. They refer to the bullshit intelligence as chicken feed, and sometimes there's gold dust. Gold dust is the good stuff, and
right.
and solid gold nuggets is like the real stuff.
Right.
So it's great cover for Bill, because he's not the only one that's feeding the Soviets information. It's just that he's the only one feeding them actual information, which is great cover and plus spy points for him. But it kind of feels also like it might be one of those cases where it feels like maybe plus spy points for one side, minus spy points for the other, because I feel like I have to mention this lack of accountability when you have multiple agents cleared to manage an asset is something that maybe really shouldn't happen in real life.
Right. Maybe it should be kind of like siloed, or I think is what it's called, fragmented.
Yeah. Yeah. Siloed, run through a single channel, right. Yeah. It feels like there's a protocol that should be in place that would have prevented Bill from being able to pull this off in the way he does. Witchcraft is an operation that's running in opposite. It's running in reverse of what Percy thinks it's doing. Right. You think it's your op. It's actually the enemy's op that's running it on you.
Yeah.
And Bill being involved, I have a theory. I don't think it's entirely accidental. You mentioned before that like witchcraft just kind of fell into Percy's lap, but it seems to me that, the Carla mastermind probably like through Bill probably helped set up witchcraft and place it in Percy's way in the first place. Like it could have been Bill that brought these things to Percy's attention. It could even be maybe Bill's idea, again, just channeling Carla, with this whole idea of trading the witchcraft information for CIA secrets. And I feel like, Bill is the guy able to see Percy as, having this flaw of ambition, to where instead of like Bill bringing these ideas to the table, he could just kind of whisper them to Percy, and Percy would be like, "Oh fuck yeah, let's do that," and even kind of always let Percy think that these were his own ideas, that he can take credit for. Yeah, and if that's true, which I think it is, That
Yeah.
would be my best tradecraft of the movie. Is using this other guy as cover. He also we'll also see later ways in which Bill, when he needs to make a move, like he uses other people as cover as well. He's always keeping one step of separation between himself and his actions. That's good tradecraft.
Yeah, I completely agree that he does keep like a degree of separation. That's why I think Bill didn't directly set up witchcraft. Considering his character, he's always kind of in the background. And I think it would be too obvious that Bill shows up to Percy and like, hey, here's this op called witchcraft. Hey, Percy, you're kind of ignored. Why don't you become control? I think Carla definitely like set this whole mastermind plan in motion, and I think uh, Bill definitely like wingmaned a lot of that. But I don't think the witchcraft stuff came directly through Bill, or even the idea of Percy, ascending to the throne. I think Bill would have like winked and elbowed a little bit with Percy, but because he's always keeping one degree of separation, I think it'd be too obvious if he was like the direct cause for this whole thing. And like I think Percy, quote unquote, on his own had to stumble on it, and I definitely think Carla is the one that quote unquote helped Percy stumble on it. But we don't get to see like how that played out. I think that would be really interesting to watch.
Sure. Well, I always assume that all of Bill's moves are basically, that he's the puppet, and not exactly the puppet, because he's very skilled. He's very talented.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's why I like to kind of describe him as a wingman. Like he wingmans everything Carla does, and then just supplies him with good information.
or that Carla is the chess player and Bill is the chess piece. Is how I
yeah.
like to think about it. And
Right.
it goes, it goes even to the depth of Carla having sussed out one of George Smiley's flaws, which is basically his kind of sort of impotence and failed marriage, that is the one that gives Bill the idea to initiate an affair with Anne's wife, or sorry, with Anne, who is George Smiley's wife. Yeah. And that's specifically meant and is successful at clouding Smiley's judgment of him, because Bill doesn't keep it entirely secret. It's a reason for Smiley's judgment of Bill to be clouded. Like, you're thinking of this guy as this asshole that's having an affair with your wife, and maybe that doesn't seem like the play that an enemy mole would make. Would be to put that shit in your face as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give plus spy points for both Carla and Bill on that one.
It's little things like that that really make the whole op come to play. Like when the naval report that Percy brings in for the first time, like Bill's sitting there reading it intently. He's even like, oh, this is pretty ridiculous. Maybe so ridiculous it could be true. Like he's just casually softballing all this stuff. Everything is so like smooth and well played from Bill. Like I really enjoy watching like that whole game.
And Bill is instrumental in betraying a plot by John Hurt that might have uncovered him. He masterfully handled the failure of that operation into setting the scene for John Hurt to be forced out of his job and for Percy to take over. And I think Bill regards Percy as his puppet. So, getting your guy that you're massaging his ego into this position of power, paves the way for the further advancement of witchcraft. And that's also like huge spy points. Tell us about that operation.
There's a bad apple, Jim. We have to find it. Yeah, that's how it starts out. We have this character Jim, who's played by Mark Strong, another one to add to the all-star cast. And we have John Hurt explaining there's a mole in the circus, and he's been given word that there's someone at the somewhere in Hungary that wants to defect, that knows the identity of this mole. Control decides that he can trust Jim, and only Jim, doesn't want to talk to anybody else, to go out and find out the identity of this mole. However, something went wrong. Jim is shot by a Russian agent, which severely is another thing. This is what really, really, is the straw that breaks the camel for Control's career, because this operation was so botched there, and on top of his whole witch hunt and paranoia, he was easily forced out. And that's pretty much what you need to know about the Hungry op.
I'm not exactly clear how Mark Strong getting killed, supposedly killed in Hungary. We're going to find out that he actually survived.
Right.
But at the moment when you're watching the movie, it looks like he's dead. I'm not sure how that is actually a reason to force Control out. It's like, oh, I had a suspicion, and the agent I sent in got to follow up on that suspicion got killed. That seems like, you guys should be giving me plus spy points, not fucking telling me to retire. Maybe it's like, maybe I'm onto something.
Yeah. Clearly somebody's trying to cover their tracks.
We never did find out exactly why Control chose Mark Strong for this mission. We never really find out what Mark Strong's position in the power structure is, but I feel like maybe John Hurt reached a couple levels down, to use the Mark Strong Jim character, because he wasn't you really plugged in on the high level stuff.
Right. I mean, we could kind of infer, because, we find out that Jim is a man of duty, and duty means everything to him. You can make an inference that Control saw that in him, but I think you pointed out something really good, that Control reached levels down to find someone, because he knew the mole. Well, this is a good segue into the code names. He knew the mole was one of 5 people. And those 5 people were the heads of the circus. Control being in the office, and now there's 5 men in front of him at the table every day at a very high level, like war room meeting type of place. That's the mole. And when he sends Jim on to Hungary, he gives him these code names specifically because when Jim finds out the identity of the mole, he doesn't want to come back and contact John, who's probably to Control it, who's probably being listened to all over the place, and everybody's being followed, and you can't trust anybody, screaming out, "Hey, by the way, it's Bill!" So we get the code names. We get Percy is Tinker, Bill is the Tailor, that guy's name I still don't know his name. The Soldier,
Ciaran Hinds,
right? Is Soldier. Toby Esterhaus is going to be Poor Man. I think what you had pointed out of him reaching down levels is trying to really gain control of the situation, because he can't trust anybody. And Jim asked, "Well, who's the 5th?" And he doesn't even give a code name for Smiley, because George Smiley is his right-hand man, and that would be pretty much the end of his world if Smiley turns out to be the mole.
There's one reason that we know how Mark Strong gets shot in Hungary. He was a dumbass and told his best friend about it,
That's
which
right.
is massive minus spy points, and it's the kind of spy points that gets you shot in the back in Hungary, sir.
He completely goes against Control's rules for this op.
When Control calls you to his house to talk to you directly, and of course, say it with me, don't trust anyone.
Yeah.
There's always some version of you won't know who you can trust, don't trust
Right.
anyone.
Right.
In spy movies, you don't fucking tell anyone, and that's why it makes both of our minus spy points and our worst tradecraft of the movie.
Absolutely.
Jim telling Bill about the operation. It's so bad that this movie kind of entirely hangs around that concept of that one mistake, because the mistake
Right.
is so egregious.
Right. It's ridiculous. It's really hard to tell if the Hungary op was entirely planned by Carla or if Jim telling Bill led to Carla finding out about the op and they intercepted the op before it could happen.
I mean, there's two reasons to interrupt this op. First of all, is to not get your mole found out, right?
Right.
If you accomplish that, you've accomplished something. And because we never find out exactly who teased this Hungarian defector to Control in the first place, but our idea is that this actually was like a whole super mastermind play to drag Control out and to get him ousted.
I like to believe that Carla set the whole thing up because he's really portrayed as this huge mastermind.
Yeah, me too.
And he was just like throwing a nugget out to Control to really lure him in, especially since he's on like such a paranoia binge. It's this light at the end of the tunnel for Control. But it could be that there really was someone trying to defect and Jim making the worst decision ever, botched the whole thing, got himself shot. It's really not clear in the film, and you probably could get more from the book or the show. But regardless, the botch op really damaged the integrity of MI6 and even further Control's clout. So this is kind of what sets up, I guess, the mess for Smiley to discover and investigate.
So when we talk about this as a botched op, it's actually botched on both sides. Let's not forget to give some minus spy points for Mr. Gunslinger Waiter. Your career in espionage is over. Not only do you sweat like a motherfucker when you're like pouring tea, you've got like your forehead sweat like just pouring onto the table, which Mark Strong misses. Why was the waiter even armed in the first place? Our guy that's kind of like ostensibly in charge of the op is like really mad at the waiter for fucking this up. He says like, we wanted him alive. Kind of suggests that the plan on the Soviet side was to capture Mark Strong, but I'm not sure for what end that would have done. I mean, since Carla is supposed to be a mastermind, I'm sure it had some aim to it, but I also have to say, wouldn't it just been better to just feed Mark Strong some bullshit that, like when you have, when you have, somebody on the hook, that's eager to get some information from you, you don't capture them. You usually just feed them some very interesting bullshit. But that's not what they did. As a result of the botched operation, Control does get forced out, and Bill masterfully takes control of the situation and arranges to not put himself in power, but to put his little puppet chess piece Percy into power. The broad question, which we can't answer right now, is whether or not that was part of the entire master plan. I like to think so.
As a fan of the movie, I just really want to believe that Carla planned the whole thing, like, super 3D chess or something, or 4D chess, And especially after the whole op gets botched, the news headline was that Jim tried to abduct a Hungarian official. It wasn't even that he was trying to find out a mole. They suppressed the entire idea of a mole's existence, and that Jim was the defector trying to abduct or maybe MI6 was trying to abduct a Hungarian official, which diplomatically makes all the politicians look terrible. So there's so many pieces to this event that plays in favor of Team Russia. And that's what I like about John Le Carre's stories in the first place. The villains generally are either have a huge advantage or they gain overwhelming advantages, and it looks like the good guys are never going to win, and they just barely squeeze through with a win.
Control does not deal with this well. He just basically kind of goes into a sort of a catatonic state, and doesn't react, which is the opening that lets Bill kind of get in there and take control of the situation. Is it minus spy points for Control there? I'm not sure. Maybe he indeed was kind of like starting to, I don't know, become a little soft in the head or something. What do you
Well,
think?
I mean, yeah, I mean, like when you're at that level, I mean, he's in charge of like British intelligence, and the people closest to you, one of them is a Judas, and he already figured out that there had to be a mole, so he's, you know, uh, I guess collecting his pieces as fast as he can so he could figure out who the mole is and get him out, and he just can't win. And I think this that's why I said, when the idea of someone having the identity being handed to him, it was kind of a light at the end of the tunnel for him. He was at his wit's end, and I think this might have been the last card in his deck, and he just was defeated. This reminds me of No Country for Old Men, where like you at the end of the film you just see like a completely defeated Tommy Lee Jones, and I think Control was in a similar situation, and he just gave up, and and he dies like shortly thereafter. It's a really sad situation for a person in his position, and a good man. I mean, just from the shots of what we get of John Hurt's character, I would love to serve under someone like him. Yeah,
Even when he's drunk and yelling at you about the punch.
yeah, yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad you brought that up. You penny pinching bastard! It'd take us hours to get on this monkey piss or whatever. It was great. Our first couple watches, it was hard for me to spot bad tradecraft,
Mm-hmm.
and Todd kind of threw that out as a joke, that skimping on the punch recipe. And so I'm gonna make that my number 3, because it was actually Todd that spotted a lot more of bad tradecraft than I did. So my number 3 worst tradecraft is Percy not following the punch recipe. I love that scene. That was so much fun.
We established Bill steps in and takes control of the situation, including, by the way, immediately wanting to clean out Mark Strong's apartment, and we get to see there that it should have been the biggest reddest flag in all of moviedom, when the one thing we see him do is make sure that he finds a picture of him and this is Bill finding a picture of him and Jim together with their arms around each other, which Connie describes later to George Smiley during his investigation as just how close of friends they were, and describing them as the inseparables. And just seeing him like slip that picture, I should have known right there. I should have known.
Right.
I think I don't really have a head for that, though. I generally, I'm a kind of a passive movie watcher in movie mystery kind of situations. I just kind of go with the flow, and at the end when they reveal who the thing was, then I'm like, oh, okay.
Like you said, the inseparables are like besties or whatever. So as an audience watcher, you're not going to pick it up, at least not on the first round. It's like, oh, he's being sentimental. Oh, there's a story here. But, it's that friendship that leads Bill into saving Jim's life. Because when the Russians have him, I think Bill was the one that convinced Carla to let Jim go.
Which is interesting. And let's just remind the audience again, everyone else thinks that Mark Strong is dead. But he's not dead. He actually did survive, and he gets captured. And it's true. Like, Bill, seemingly for no other reason than friendship, does intervene to arrange for Mark Strong to get traded back. But he does it in such a way where he doesn't just want Mark Strong to be traded back. He wants Mark Strong to be traded back and also like taken off the board, be kept silent, and let everyone else continue to think that he's dead. And right. He does that. He arranges that through Esterhaus, by the way. So again, that thing I talked about being like, good tradecraft is the way Bill always keeps a level of separation between what he's doing and what he needs accomplished. And I think it would be, I feel very mean giving minus spy points for this minor act of friendship. I mean, you just sold your best friend out and got him shot in Hungary. The least you could do is like kind of intervene and say, well, don't kill him, like let him live. But at the end of the day, that act of friendship does lead eventually to Bill getting exposed and killed. So here you go, buddy.
By Jim.
Yeah, well, yeah. Here's your minus spy points. Intervening to trade Jim back, and that has to be my number 2 worst tradecraft. In for a penny, in for a pound. If you're gonna sell your best friend out, you gotta go whole hog, or you're gonna get shot in the head at the end of the movie.
Right, you gotta keep on, whatever your strategy is going. You can't half-ass it.
Yeah, exactly. Although who knows too, like, and then I'm only just now for the first time wondering, like, well, why does Carla even capitulate on that point? Like, I feel like we're meant to think of Carla as this Soviet spy master, 3-dimensional chess player that probably wouldn't have let that slide unless it fit some of his aims. We never get any support for that claim, so I guess I'm gonna give some minus points for Carla as well.
Well, there's a couple of reasons he might have done that.
Let's hear him.
He might not. It might have upset Bill too much, and he might have lost Bill as an asset.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
And then another thing is, he uses Jim to like poke at Smiley later. He's the one that shows off the lighter and is asking a bunch of questions about Smiley. And so it could have been just a little poke at Smiley, like, haha, I'm such a mastermind and you're going to fall just like Control did.
Yeah, but that's plus ego points. That's plus, that's
right.
That's plus villain points for you, but it can't be plus spy points to me.
No. I think the most realistic reason would be keeping Bill as an asset, and like just the shade to Smiley would be like a cherry on top. But at this position, the Russians are looking pretty strong, and with this whole Hungary op, they've pretty much got control of the situation.
Everything's coming up roses in Moscow.
Yeah, right. And everything would have gone swimmingly according to plan, except for
Ricky Tarr. This is our Tom Hardy character.
Yeah, he's a fun one.
I feel like this is also true of detective stories that the villainous plan, like it might have a whole bunch of steps, and obviously there were some things that didn't go entirely according to plan, and our detective main character George Smiley is going to have to figure all of this out, but there's always like just one little loose thread that is the thing that kind of like even triggers the investigation in the first place.
Ricky Tarr is stationed. He's what he describes himself as a scalp hunter. But by the way, there's actually a glossary on Wikipedia, and there's a nice article from the BBC of some of the spy jargon that you would need to know watching this movie or reading the book. And scalp hunters are the people that do your dirty work, like murders or theft or robbery, blackmailing. Kind of like the guys that just like clean things up for you. And that is Tom Hardy's character, Ricky Tarr.
MI6 does have a guy in place, and that guy has communicated to MI6 that he thinks he spots someone that you might be able to get your screws into, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're always on the lookout for, on the enemy side, you're looking for apparently like people that drink too much, people that complain about their jobs, people that just have personal issues, maybe gambling debts. And often, especially in the 20th century, unfortunately, like homosexuality, just anything about them that is like kind of a weak link, like maybe you can leverage that into, like, hey, talk to me, tell me about your troubles, or you could do you could do the harder thing, you could go more hardline on them. It's like, I got some dirt on you, and I'm gonna spill it unless you play ball. See?
Right.
Well, that's the game. Also, everyone knows that's the game. So sometimes you might go out and pretend to be vulnerable. That's what the term coat trailing means, is maybe you pretend to drink too much. You pretend that you're dissatisfied with your job.
Yeah, that's exactly what Boris does. He pretends to be drunker than he is I think the way Ricky described it.
According to Ricky, he takes one look at that guy and says, I immediately knew that I had wasted a trip. There's no way this guy is totally like just coat trailing like crazy. Meaning that the guy is actually a Soviet agent and not just an asset. I love that was explained in this movie. I had never thought of the concept before. It makes perfect fucking sense to me. It's my best tradecraft number 3. Just having that concept brought up. However, Ricky does kind of spot maybe another weak link that Boris hadn't exactly planned.
Or did he?
Right. Which is this horrible treatment of his wife, Irina. Maybe Irina's got a weak link here.
He pretends to be a businessman on a holiday, and they have like a fun holiday romance, but she's the one that lets out of the bag that she knows who he is, and she knows all about control and the circus, and that she wants to defect to the West. That's why Todd and I were thinking she might have been co-trailing a little bit too.
Either way, we're going to give it plus spy points for him for seeing the opportunity, and for her for whether or not she planned the opportunity. She takes advantage of it because she does have some valuable information, and Ricky is the guy that can maybe arrange for her to be able to trade that information for a new life in the West. The problem is, even though we applaud Ricky for taking this initiative and spotting this opportunity, he gets some minus spy points for running like kind of his own op on his own initiative and without informing his handler. We'll find out later Cumberbatch was his handler, Ricky. That's how you get cumber punched in the face later in the movie. And
yeah, he went over Cumberbatch's head and went straight to the circus. And this is gonna make my worst tradecraft number 2. Number 1, there's a protocol in place for a reason, and unless you have reason to not trust Cumberbatch, there shouldn't be any reason for you to skip the protocol or the chain of command in this point. But for his character, it's very believable. He feels like a low-level scalp hunter, and he wanted to bring this in and, maybe climb the ladder himself. But what really bugs me about this the most is he's received information that someone at the top of the circus is a mole. And what does he do? He contacts the top of the circus to tell him that his information that someone in the top of the circus is a mole. So
it's a bad move, Ricky.
Definitely how you get cumber punched.
Le Carre is trying to tell us about in this novel about how ambition clouds judgment. Ricky seems to feel like he's like the very bottom of the barrel, and he's just got his hook into a shark. He is what he feels like. He skipped the minnow phase and the barracuda phase, and he's literally got his hooks into a shark, which could be huge for him. And maybe people will take him seriously, if he brings this in on his own. But when he's telling this to George Smiley, it's a super micro expression, but you can see that Smiley recognizes that was the mistake.
Yeah. And I think that's when he realizes he can trust Ricky's story too. That was actually a really cool scene.
Probably
between
true.
Ricky and Smiley.
That's a great point. Yeah.
You
You
know,
know, he gets it. You know, Smiley used to be Ricky at some point, I
Right.
guess.
Right.
It's pretty awful. I mean, Irina specifically made Ricky promise not to give details. You were just supposed to say you had your hooks in a guy that wanted to come over, not to report back that you had information about info on a double agent, because that's going to raise holy hell at the top level of the circus. And if the mole is at the top level of the circus, she's fucked.
She does end up fucked, and so does our, I guess, radio operator.
He was the station head.
Tufty,
But
yeah.
you know, but Ricky thought he was just like kind of a lame ass drunk, and that's also like part of why Ricky like just felt like, you know, going around him instead of through
Right.
him. But that's
Right.
also it's also bad. It didn't work out well.
Tufty was one of those type of guys, just kind of drunk all the time and just showed up, 9 to 5, just to get his paycheck. And so
Mhm.
Ricky's like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to the top.
And the super important part for our purposes of the whole Ricky Tara story is that when he did report that he had like the super gold nugget right to the top of the circus, all he got back was
It just said, we read you.
and just
That's all he got.
the lack of response was, the silence was deafening. Because all these radio messages, they're not sent through voice. They're teletyping like codes to each other. And since Tufty was supposed to be the actual radio operator, we can see that the Russians just assumed that it was him, that it was Tufty that sent the message, and so Tufty needed to die. Now Ricky was actually the guy that sent the message, so now Ricky realizes, oh fuck. And then, of course,
Right.
Irina gets abducted as well. So now Ricky is completely realizes he's blown everything, does manage to get back to London, and he calls, you got to know,
Buttered Toast guy.
Buttered
Yeah.
Toast guy, right?
No, the civil servant or diplomat or whatever. I don't even know if we find out what his position is, but he's the guy that completely dismisses Percy, and he's like talking about how the image of MI6 has ruined the image of the nation. And he's sitting in this meeting with like Percy, and I forgot who else was in the room, but he's just sitting there buttering his toast, like all dismissive. Once you get to that level, you're going to be really good at buttering toast and dismissing people.
The Foley artist in that scene was just fucking off the hook.
Yeah.
But Ricky gets to London somehow, and he calls Buttered Toast guy, and he says, I gotta talk to someone. You can't tell anybody at MI6 except Cumberbatch.
That phone call is what triggers the investigation. This is the story. Is Smiley is called upon by Buttered Toast guy to come out of retirement to investigate the possibility of a mole.
Let's cut it here. At its heart, Tinker Tailor is a detective story. And in detective stories, a lot of the really important stuff happens before the detective character actually takes the stage. We're much more interested in tradecraft than narrative on this podcast, so that's why we've laid out pretty much everything that happened before George Smiley was tasked to discover what the hell is going on here. When we come back in part 2, that's the part where we'll follow Smiley along on his path to the discovery and resolution of those facts. And as always, we'll have our final verdict on the tradecraft portrayed by the film's characters.
As always, the best way to make sure you don't miss out on that is to hit the subscribe button on iTunes, Google, or your favorite podcast app. Also, you can find updates on our Facebook page or website, spieslikeus.net. And please, if you can help us out, give us some feedback by rating us and leaving us comments. We're always trying to improve the show, and your thoughts would be a big help.
The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.